Welcome to this edition of the Times Techies webinar series. My name is Sujit John, and I have with me my colleague Shilpa Fadnis. We are technology and business reporters at TOI, and both of us have been with TOI a long time. The two of us will moderate this discussion. Our discussion today is on the skills, jobs, and research opportunities in IoT and AI. In the last many months since we started the series, we haven't had a serious discussion on IoT, and we thought it would be a good opportunity now. And we have with us two professionals who are leading the community called IoT.in, Nikhil, Bhaskaran, and Sejal, Gupta. IoT.in is a platform that supports the creation of innovative startups in IoT and AI by upskilling aspirants. It also seeks to create a large IoT and AI skill pool. Both of them are based in Pune. Nikhil is also the founder of Shunya OS. Shunya is an AI integrated OS for IoT. It helps people build AI on edge applications faster. The product is not out yet. I think they're expecting by next year it will. Nikhil was among 40 global innovators selected by semiconductor company ARM. Sejal is a recent computer science graduate, and she's now part of the founding team of IoT.in and Shunya OS. So welcome, Nikhil and Sejal. Those who are viewing this can send in questions through the Facebook comment box. Shilpa and I will put them to Nikhil and Sejal. Let me start by asking Nikhil. Nikhil, in our previous discussions, you were saying you spent several years in China, and you said the kind of things that you saw in China was what inspired you to come back to India and try and replicate some of those things, especially around IoT and AI. Can you describe what you saw?
Okay, so what I primarily saw is like when I went to China, it was still a developing country, and then they rapidly grew between 2010 to 20. And I was there in a place called Shenzhen. Whenever you say made in China for electronics, it actually all goes down to one city called as Shenzhen. So I was the city leader there for Mozilla, developer community lead, and I was also the startup community lead. I got featured by the government there as part of Make Pitchins. And so I got a lot of chance to go close to how things work there. And what I saw there was the government takes an initiative and brings the latest in that industry to that country. They skill their people en masse. I mean, that's typical China. Whatever they plan to do, they do it in en masse. So they bring the leading technology to the country and skill their people. So Tim Cook also said this: Apple doesn't go to China anymore for low cost labor. They go there because you can find abundant skill. So what I realized is, and this is also another thing, like I said, Ray Dalio has already done a study that any country that wants to become a superpower typically invests in their people's education. Give them the best of education, because that becomes, they bring in innovation to the country, and innovation unlocks maximum value. So like the Dutch did the investment on shipbuilding, and they made their people smart. So they were the original leaders. The British took it from them, and then it goes to US, and then now the Chinese took. But every generation, the skills are different. Now we cannot teach shipbuilding. It's too late, and it's not needed either. So now the next thing that we need is the next 10 years. We need to have the vision. What is coming next 10 years? It's IoT, it's AI. I can say how we reached here if you want to know, but otherwise you can just take my word that, yeah, the next 10 years is for sure. It's for AI and IoT. This is where most of the products are going to be made. This is where most of the value is going to come out in business. So if India is going to wait until others innovate and then we just give them services, like we generally support them build their dreams, we have kind of missed the bus, right? So I said, I understood this from China. Oh, this is where they're going next. Let me go to India and mass educate people. Let me try to make this change. So that's how I came to India, and then we made these modules in AI and IoT, and we kept all our education free and then went on training people. So we can have abundant skill pool, and it can lead to startups and all. But obviously the vision is, I mean, I'm too small a person to drive such a large vision. I thought it will get more support, but I'm at least happy that people like you in the media are now giving it some voice, because that is what we need. We're not China. We're not China where everything is driven by government, and we don't expect the government to do much. We are a democracy. We're people, right? You and I and some people who want to drive change can come together and drive change. That's the beauty that this country has. So this is where we are on the mission. This is the reason of the mission. And I look forward to have people like you and others on my side to empower India.
What are some interesting applications that you saw in China?
In the AI front or general?
IoT come AI.
Okay. So IoT, they are also still coming in. I mean, the main thing and the most controversial thing that they did is all of these cameras they have are smart now. So they are actually AI built-in cameras. They can do surveillance and like very controversial. But yes, it is there. It's already installed. Then most of the
That's exactly what I remember. One of these Indian American professors, come entrepreneur, and all, sorry, I forget his name. Big time guy. He was in a university like campus, and he said he was trying to cross a road, and it was not crossing at the right point. Immediately, a voice came from, I think it was a lamppost or something with the camera installed, which said, and he mentioned his name and said, please don't cross here, and said cross somewhere else where it's supposed to, and all that. So obviously it recognized the face and then communicated to him that,
yeah,
it is a Chinese university. It was a Chinese university or something.
yeah. So within universities, they might be experimenting already. So I don't know if the name can be done, but they really track everyone. They can know that they have an app. So most of this is IoT and AI already built in. So now we are talking of this. This is already there. The AI is also built into the device, and the IoT is also built into the device where it can take an action. It can probably, most of the parking lots have all changed in China, where they are all AI based. So it reads your number plate, it opens it for you, and that's how you get entry into your own society. So it's all AI based. It's now no more card, it's no more stickers. There's nothing of that sort. This is already there. So a lot of technology in everyday life. You see technology, and that's what I sometimes love about Shenzhen. You will see ads in the city where it's about the new technology.
Oh, really?
Yeah, here you see politician happy birthday and all that. There you would see, yeah, this is a new technology coming, and the government has spent a lot of money in advertising that new technology that is coming. So it's a very tech driven society that they're building, and everyone is fascinated of new technology. So robots are built. I think we already know of Boston Dynamics, that robot that is already there in China. Yeah, much cheaper. uh, so it's very common to see technology, like you cannot even pick. It's like, okay, so many things are very commonplace. So, and the result of all that is the GDP per capita of one district is $50,000, which designs most of this. So it is generating a lot of wealth for the nation, which is what we wanted to replicate in India. Even if we create a small cluster which is very innovative, you're going to bring a lot of international wealth to this country.
Okay, okay. And IoT.in, what kind of progress have you made?
So how we've made progress is, initially when I started, it's obviously.
Is there a WhatsApp notification that somebody's on? I don't think it's my. I don't think it's mine. Is there a notification or something? There's a noise that's coming occasionally.
I don't know if it's mine. It's switched off anyway.
No, okay. Go on, Nikhil.
Yeah. So yeah, where we are, how we started, right, and where are we so far? So how we initially started is, I started as a classroom coaching. I used to teach people once in 6 months. We took a batch, and it was 6 months long. Obviously, I had to relearn India. I realized that this generation needs things faster. 6 months is too long, and I was teaching in classroom. So over a period of time, but I also understood my perception of what the education is that they get in engineering completely was wrong, because I realized they're way behind what they should know. So being that first-hand teacher, it helped me a lot, because I was very attentive to what are their problems, why are they not grasping the subject. I also understood language is a huge problem. I mean, honestly, it's a huge problem. We really don't realize. Let me give an example. I used to teach Linux. If I say Linux is a monolithic kernel, a lot of people don't get the word monolithic. Nothing comes in their mind. You're not able to visualize anything. But if you say it's like a katta hai or brick or something very simple, it does stay in your mind. So what I realized is, our students are losing a lot of time and energy in grasping that word inside than thinking on it and innovating. This is like this. What can I do with it is not what your brain energy is lost in. It's lost in getting that thing and absorbing into it, because you're speaking in a foreign language. Versus in China, it's all in local language.
Oh.
Right? Even those advanced concepts are in local language. So you have the brain bandwidth left to think, oh, so then what can I do with it? If it's a blog, then what can I do with it? So these are things that I fundamentally realized that, and we started at BHAU in COAP. So very thankful to them that they gave us that support, because they had this vision that India should get these latest technologies. So we started that way, but then it was going, and then we obviously made it shorter, 3 months. A lot of applications also started coming in. But the real thing happened in 2020, the boom, I would say. The problem that we suddenly faced is we couldn't do in classroom stuff, right? Because of the pandemic. We were already digitizing. We were completely digitizing this whole thing. I wanted to scale up, so we were digitizing, but it did make our digital transformation like really go this way. Just to, because we were forced to do that, and we adapted. So now this has become fully online, and now 2,000 odd people apply every month. Learn from us, from many IITs, NITs. They all come, they learn, they do projects together. So we have reached a point where a lot of projects happen. In fact, I think 1,400 odd projects happen today within the system. And I think there are 1,600 odd students. We can share the screen if needed. I don't know. But this is the
What kind of projects are these?
So they're all AI and IoT. They're building small devices. They're optimizing the OS. They're all micro projects. Some of them are on the website where you can see, like you can see a person and give a card by automatically the camera can see a person and then it will give you hand over your card. It will see a person and open the door. It will take your picture and send it to WhatsApp. Who came there? All this because so what we have built is this small device which is both AI enabled, IoT enabled, and it can also talk to your web and app ecosystem, which is the previous generation of computers, web and app. So WhatsApp is from the web and app generation. So you can seamlessly integrate. These kind of applications have been built. Yeah. And we get,
okay.
One
Sejal,
thing
you want to add to that?
Yeah,
Sejal, yeah, what is your experience with IoT, IoT.in community?
Yeah, so I think I'll start with my experience, right? Like, I think I joined when, Nikhil mentioned about him doing classroom training. So I think I was like one of the first, we were, I think, in the first or the second training group as such, right? So we have actually experienced like right from classroom training to getting it all digitized and then even making it smaller, right? Like from having 6-month long internships or project building sessions to having 3-day short workshops. So I think like generally you have this issue, right? Like my generation, including us, we don't like including me, we don't really want to do something for too long. So I think that's the main reason why we really shortened it out. And of course, there was a lot of innovation that went in because, we really have, there's no infrastructure available. You don't have the technology stack available. It's really difficult to be on the creator side, right? Which is actually what engineering is supposed to be. But I don't think that's what we're doing currently in the education system. Right. But I think that's what primarily got transformed in IoT. Right. And I think it's more about my experience of becoming like a very immature person who's just trying to do different dreamy projects in college to really doing things the industry professional way. Right. So I think that's what we're trying to do, different programs, different modules. I think we'll talk about that ahead. Right.
Okay. Shilpa?
Nikhil, see, there is several discussions on whether it is moving from exploratory pilots to end-to-end IoT solutions. You spoke about 2,000 odd students, coming in every month and creating projects. So what has their experience been and what are you seeing from an industry standpoint? Has the discussion moved from exploratory pilots?
Largely the industry was and it's still largely at exploratory pilots, and implementation is hard, right? I mean, there's a fear until someone else implements, you don't want to disrupt what's working, especially in industry 4.0. Within the IoT space, there are different areas. So the industry 4.0, especially, there's something that's working. So people did not want to implement. But when COVID happened, I know companies that had their pilots done 2 years back. Suddenly they started falling short of people. There were not enough people coming to factory. They wanted to now remotely monitor all that production. They had to get these reports done, and the transformation happened. So COVID did speed it up. That is one part from the industry side. What's happening from pilot to so now the implementations are happening. Now everyone is taking implementation seriously. Now on the student side is completely a different problem. There is no visibility of what level of complexity exists in the industry. The academic world is very, very different. Very simple projects, very basic projects are done, which cannot be deployed in a way. So at the academic level, we are still pushing them to do things in a way that can be used in industry. Like, just connecting a LED and making it blink is not enough. Have you taken care of security? Is this documented? Is this professional code? All this is not known at college level. So from the student side, this is what we are fixing. We're telling them the same thing that you did in a playful way. When you do it in a professional way, you understand what is the complexity involved, how many things you have to take care of. So now they're still doing simple stuff. On the surface, it looks simple, but it's way better because it's way professional. It's all documented. Every security aspect is taken care of. That's how it differs on both sides.
A question coming in. There's already a question that's come in. Let me just ask that. Chirantan Banerjee is asking this. How would you differentiate between AI and automation?
Okay. So AI and automation is actually, okay, it's a very good question. It's a full generational shift. There was previously an automation. It's in fact, the whole computer generation is where some human writes the logic, okay, and next time you define if then as this rule based, you write all the rules, then next time you give it data based on those rules, it will give you an output. In AI, it's different. You give the input and you give him the output, sample input and sample output. It gives you the rule. So the automation is where some human has defined the rules. AI is where it will define the rules of how to do it again next time. How to automate is defined by the AI itself. So it's more of a brain that is doing that, and then it's saying, okay, I know how to do this. Let me write the logic to get to the same thing much better. So this is the difference between automation. So now a human is not required, a human in a way, to think of all possibilities. AI will think of all possibilities based on as much as data you have given. So it's more like, how does your baby learn? A baby learns, you don't teach it all words, you teach it some words, and then it forms those sentences itself, right? So because you don't say, if this happens, do this, that's not how it is. The baby self figures out. So you are just exposing the baby to, like, everyone comes and talks to the baby. The more exposure it gets, the more it forms sentences itself. So that is how AI is. In automation, everything that the baby could say must have been pre-fed.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. I guess Chirantan would have understood that as well. Yeah. Shilpa?
Yeah, Sejal, I wanted to bring you in here. If you can talk about, what are the emerging systems for AI in IoT systems? If you can share your thoughts, how is AI playing a crucial role?
All right. So I think specifically you're talking about the technologies, right? Like in AI as well
Yeah.
as IoT, right? So I think more than just talking about it individually, like individually and individually IoT, I think it's more about IoT now, right? Like because you have the industry 4.0 getting transformed, and then what happens with AI is it's also complementing IoT, because of course you're doing all the analysis and everything on the cloud, but apart from that, you're also thinking. You have a brain, you have intelligence in that, which can also fix things, right? So I think that's mainly the things that are happening in AIoT, right? So instead of just talking about AI or IoT separately, it's more about a combination of the two, right? So I think, and I think Nikhil would be like able to talk more about the technology stack specifically in AI as well as IoT, right? So I think I think Nikhil, so you can probably add on to that.
Yeah. So if you want, I can. Or do you want to move?
Go on, Nikhil.
Okay. So in technology stack, what happens in AI is, first is the IoT part. The IoT part is where you talk to all these devices that you have around you are all going to connect to the internet. So internet has had its own journey. Internet was first internet of services, which is the e-commerce generation where a lot of services came online. Then the internet of people happened, which is the social media revolution. Now we are having internet of things where everything is going to come on internet. Today your fridge is not on internet, but you will have a future where the fridge is on internet. But the fridge will not just be on internet for no reason. It will be on internet because it knows that, okay, the milk is out, somebody, and I need to reorder this. So it is actually having an intelligent brain where it is scanning everything on the shelf, and you have given it the power to go and order it on Amazon when it gets, when it's over. So it's an intelligent machine which is doing a lot of work that you don't want to do. Now the technology stack behind this is, the first part was the IoT. In IoT, what you need is you need connectivity to the cloud, and it has to be secure connectivity. So in secure connectivity, you have protocols like MQTT. All this is making it secure data transmission. That's one part of it. In the AI, what I spoke about, it being able to see what is in the fridge, is a computer vision problem. So in computer vision, all of the AI, what you do is you create a neural network, exactly like your human brain. Your human brain is a neural network, which has the ability, because it's exposed to certain things. So what you do is, in these small devices, you keep a brain inside, which in the beginning it's blank, but then you train it with data. So like if you wanted to know the milk, then you show it a lot of packets of milk, like probably 10,000 to 30,000. Actually, you need more. And then it learns from it. Oh, this is how it looks. This is how. So then it becomes an intelligent brain. But the advantage is you can now, once created, you can replicate into multiple devices. So it's like keeping someone there to sit and watch, but a human is not, mass replicable, right? So AI is. This is the difference. I hope it's a stack and application balance.
To learn IoT, what would you recommend? I mean, what do you tell your student? What are the things that they should be learning?
Okay, so
how comfortable should they be in programming to begin with?
Decently today, actually, the world is going more and more towards low code and no code. So you need to have your logical skills. There is no substitute to it, but you don't need your syntax skills. Like you don't have to know how to syntax. Your programming syntax doesn't have to be so good. The logic and your thinking, your ability to create something, that is still required. But there are a lot of IDE and all that will fix. So I think if you were to go, how does someone learn? Step one is Arduino or Pi. It is the very basic Arduino and Pi, Raspberry Pi. There are these devices which most of the colleges have. It's something that actually in the US and UK is done at the school level now. So these are very basic, but because they did not have access in the past, so they can start with that. But that's like educational. They must know that this is not IoT, because a lot of people stop there, think that this is IoT. No, because it's just connecting things in a fun way. So the next level they understand is, how is this done in the industry? That means if I'm sending this particular data onto a cloud, what kind of cloud what does it demand on the cloud side? So in that case, then you go to all this secure cloud, like you go to AWS, Amazon IoT, and they're all kind of free. You can put a credit card and get it for a year for $1. Go to Microsoft Azure, understand, and then read their documentation, understand how is an IoT cloud, what all is there in a real industrial cloud, and then say, how do I communicate with this using my device? Then you realize, okay, I need a secure protocol, which is MQTT. Then I need to have certificates which authenticate me. So without getting into that, hard to remember, the approach is first do the basics without worrying about how industry does this, then look for real stuff. And the advantage that the generation has today is even the industry stuff is kind of open and free to use. In the past, this was not possible, right? You have to go into a company to get access to such clouds. But today, that's not the case. So it's available. You go to the cloud, you go to these devices, and then you see what is, and they have documented, if you want to connect to me, these are the protocols you need to follow. These are the things that you need to follow. So you just try to do that and you're automatically upgrading yourself. I think Microsoft also has a program for Azure development, and they kind of certify it free, or I don't know, it's very low cost. So all of these companies also want those skills, right? So they are also promoting stuff. So yeah, this is the approach I would suggest you take. And obviously, because we are all humans, we need a motivation to learn all this. So that's why we have this learn by doing approach, where we say, take up a product idea. What do I want to make? And then try to connect all this. Because then that's my motivation. I have a gratification that, oh, I dreamt of it and I made it now. That's
free courses and all about some various open source technologies and all that. Is it the free courses, or what is available free, you said?
So the companies are also giving it free, but they are individually giving their own technologies free. What we give is a collection of all of these. Yeah. So like Amazon is also giving their Amazon IoT cloud free, but then it's only Amazon. It's not nothing on the devices side. Microsoft is doing their cloud, so they are all doing their own stack free. What we have in our program is where you can connect all this, and we also give you a mentor. So you choose an idea first. I want to make this, and then let's teach you how to make it professionally, how to document, how to use secure protocols, how to build it. So at the end you come out with this result, and you also get the whole landscape view.
Sejal, what are the people who come to you? What do they struggle with typically?
Okay, thanks for that question. Thank you. I think it's just going to like trigger me, right? There are so many things. I just want to talk about the transformation, I think. right? So I think primarily Nikhil also mentioned about the mindset, right? So you don't really need to know the syntax or the syntactical skills. It's more about 21st century skills, So even if you really know complex thinking, like critical thinking, problem solving, I think that's mainly what is needed. Now, coming to what people really struggle with, I think, like again, I'll divide it into two parts. One is mindset, and then your skills, like your real technical skills, right? So I think mindset is obviously an issue that's very, very cultural, and because that's what we are habitual to, right? Like right from our education system, it's always been very, very spoon fed. Right? So it's not really the AI way of learning. Like even if you have to make AI learn, it's always going to be you give an input, it'll give an outcome, and then it'll learn through errors. But generally, I think as culture, like I think it's just in a cultural, right? Like you don't really need to make errors. It's always good. We don't really celebrate failures or any of it. It's always about the win. So I think that's primarily a mindset shift which you're trying to bring through problem solving. So it's okay to fail. You'll have a mentor to support you, but there's not going to be like hand holding, mothering even after you have become an adult. So I think that's the mindset part. And then I think skills, mainly the issue is like with very basic things. I think, of course, we're talking about AI, IoT, the DNNs, protocols, and all of this, but students really struggle with even basic skills like Git. So there's so many code available. You have open source things, open source competitions, different things available where you can really learn all of these skills, like professional skills. But because you don't have basic foundational skills like Git, it becomes an issue to even access those. So I think like these are the two main parts. Of course, there are a high level of skills needed, but let's just talk about foundational skills, which is an issue.
So then what do you do? Or how do you help them?
We obviously like train them, right? Like there's going to be basic Git training. Even before Git, there's always a cultural and mindset alignment. So, and also like we always like specify mindset, even though said it's never going to change, right? It's generally like your New Year resolutions where you have something on 31st, but it doesn't really turn up on first. So you need to constantly be pushing and putting yourself like, okay, I need to behave in an educated way, you can say, where you're reading things, understanding things, and really implementing it than just knowing the terms as such. Like just to add to that, actually, like there's a lot of difference, right? I think in college we generally feel we know what persistence is, or what discipline is, or what professional coding is. We know all these terms, but we don't really understand the depth of what all of this means. Multiple problems, language, different things, but we don't really understand the gravity. So I think these are the two main things.
Okay. Shilpa?
We have some questions coming in. This is from Samshwi Holi. How far is it possible to gather all the required information about domestic, industrial, and general data and obtain all the permissions to enable IoT on a large scale? How does IoT tackle privacy concerns?
So I think it's a very large problem that someone's trying to solve. First of all, so much data in India, the primary problem is so much data is not available. It's not digitized. So we are at one step behind where we have to first digitize so much data, and then comes the issue of bringing them all online, and then comes the issue of privacy. Now you have my data. So we have some, like the Internet of People generation where the emotions and stuff is captured. That's okay. That data is already come online. But in IoT, when we speak of industrial IoT, like our homes are not online yet, our meters are not online yet. So we are still struggling with the first part. How do we get the data? How do we make these devices to transmit data? So I think we are at that stages where I'll stop. The other things, I think once those data comes in, like we're already in discussion mode about the people's data, about what happens about my Facebook data, what happens about the and WhatsApp data, because the people have all come and put their data, then the privacy struggle starts. So I think that will happen in IoT also. Once the data is there, probably we'll think of the privacy. But it's more secure there because those protocols are already in place where it's more secure. And unlike in the previous generation, we did not know about privacy. And here we already know. So the protocols are designed much more secure. This is what I would say. The first challenge is data. And data is the new oil. There's a reason. That's why they say, because much of this comes, you will start seeing a lot of interesting ways of making money, things that you did not know. There is so much loss in my building because we were never monitoring what is my power pump doing. All this data, if it's available to you, you are living in some building. Do you know how much power is consumed by your motor? No, because you don't have a dashboard. You don't know what is happening. How is all this getting managed? How much wastage is happening? Though you are a concerned citizen, you want it to be a, so where is the data? So once you start seeing this data, a lot of things will change. You will change your approach. This is how I think.
This is
So
question
Nikhil,
from
what
that.
you're saying
Oh,
is
go on.
by really accessing data, having um, a very large database, you will go from intelligent monitoring to decision-making applications. Do you think that is more feasible?
Sure, sure. And in fact, we think, like Sejal said, we're going to think that the decision making is also going to move towards the edge itself. So now we are talking of bringing the data on the cloud and making decision. We are saying that no, we're going one step further, where that's where the privacy also gets gets addressed. Because if you're not bringing the data to a center and decision making is happening on the edge itself, it's more private. So yeah, those devices that we will install will be all intelligent. Like it will take that decision largely itself, that the pump is doing so much, I need to uh, trigger a request to call the service guy because this is consuming too much power, not meant to be, and things like that. So both decisions will also be taken on the edge. This is the next generation of IoT.
To what extent has the world progressed on that front to enable AI, powerful AI within those edge devices? I mean, cars and all have to brake immediately and all of that. So I've heard a lot of talk about it, but to what extent is it all done?
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, I'll tell you a joke that when we pitched about edge computing in 2017, some very big investor really laughed on us. Like, what is this? What is about AI and edge? What has it got to do with that? AI is all about data and decision making. Because even thinking beyond the premise of cloud and bringing it to the edge was impossible. So it's very recent. So some people, like investors who was thinking so forward, also kind of missed it. But edge computing became hot by the end of 2019. So it's very recent. In 20 now it's become really hot, and especially like we mentioned the cars, it's a very good one. Tesla and all had the vision that yes, and it's also necessary. You cannot expect to send data from the car to a cloud and then take a decision. You must have hit the person already. It's too late, right? So they had that mandatory need to run it on the edge. Beyond that, also now everyone's realizing that there's no need to put so much bandwidth onto the cloud. A lot of factories cannot do this. Factory sites are remote, so they will do it on the edge itself and only send. So in a way, I would say that the way I see the future is the intelligence is going to be on the edge, the wisdom is going to be on the cloud. From all these small devices, it will all come to the cloud, and the wisdom will be on the cloud, but the intelligence.
And then it goes back again into the device.
Right.
Informs the device that okay. But what's enabled all this AI and more powerful processors and all that are happening for edge devices, or what?
Perfect. So that's a beautiful question. So now what is happening is the computer journey is very interesting. I have a different article on how the Apple M1 chip is a very revolutionary chip, and I've written on it. Computation, what AI needs is, okay, the human brain is a very efficient machine. It's obviously universe created. We work on 2 watts of power. All of this thinking, very, very low power consuming, just 2 watts of power. But our general computers are not so efficient. And when we wanted to add brain onto it, we needed huge computers. That's why they had to put it on the cloud. They were like huge servers with huge computational power, GPU and all that. Because to run a brain, you need that much compute. But what is happening with all these, Apple and all, they are pushing the limits on their phone and smartwatch. They want more and more out of that at low power. So the technology shift that is happening is these devices that you today carry in your hand, one camera also is hard. And many times people do that test, right? When they want to buy a phone, they just turn on the camera and see how good is the camera quality. It's a very good test. It's a very simple test, but it's a very good test because the camera processing takes a lot of CPU power. So now they're able to do 2. That means it's taking 2 different shots and immediately creating an image. The power of the compute is gone very high. This is making edge possible. And the reason I could see it is because in China, they were already thinking of that. And when in 2017, I already saw that this is where it is coming. And Huawei, in fact, gave us a board to work on in 2017. So we saw that this is where the future is. The Americans or Chinese are seeing the world in a different way. The Chinese are already seeing it on the edge. So the compute is what is making it possible.
Is
all
it?
these
Okay.
devices are very, very powerful. We don't realize how much processing power added by just adding one more camera. It's actually much more powerful processor that's able to do it.
Okay.
all of this is AI. A lot of camera is also now doing AI. Apple calls it bionic, if you know. That bionic is nothing but the power to do AI on chip. That's what they're calling bionic. So and others call it NPU. So these things happened in between. We didn't realize that, okay, edge computing is here. Now this thing is very powerful.
I see. So there's this question from Dharamveer Bharti. Most of the online tutorials and courses in IoT just pick some microcontrollers or microprocessors, connect it to the internet, and just upload data points. Something extra may be activating an actuator based on the data, but I think IoT is a lot more than that. How far should I go to call myself an IoT developer?
No, okay. Thanks for that question. Sejal, do you want to take it?
I think I'll just start it and then I think you can take it ahead from there.
Okay.
Right. So I think, okay, I think again, I'll say it in two parts. Right. So the first part is, of course, not, yeah. Okay. So I think the first part is obviously you need to, most of the online tutorials, right? They'll generally start with theory where you're talking about different protocols, etc. Like a lot of theory. And then you'll move on to doing some small practical so you feel good. Now, coming from the marketing aspect, they're just giving you some instant gratification, some certificates, and you're done. Right? But that's not generally how you can learn AI, because you really need to like work on projects. And I think, like he rightly said, there are different stack. Even in IoT, there is the operating system, then you have the protocols, the security layer, multiple things. Right? So I think that's the very first level. Now, coming from the user side, like why exactly that's done, that's that's mainly because as this generation you don't really are patient and stable to learn things for long. These are like really emerging technologies, very big stacks, like huge stacks, and it's very difficult to do it alone. So I think again, two parts, wherein the first part is obviously you are trying to learn something professionally by doing it and not just learning the theory aspect first. And I think the second part is doing it collaboratively and collectively. Right. So I think these are the two parts. And of course, learning all the processes and tools needed to do both these things right. The technical stack yourself as well as collaboration. So even though collaboration feels like just working together, there's a lot of processes and tools that are needed to really learn it.
Okay, so I'll answer that question from Dharamveer's side. So Dharamveer should think he's at very entry level. This is something you have got familiar with IoT. Okay, now you can only call yourself as I'm an engineer who's familiar with IoT. The real deal is when you can build something which can be deployed in industry. Where is what Sejal was saying about the ability to work. You cannot take a course where you're just doing it alone. If you can do it alone, trust me, it's not deployable, because no industry project is done alone. It's done by a large team. So is it so complex that I need 4 or 5 people to finish it? That level of complexity, and those to do something like that, you need to be taught tools, how to collaborate. Right? Like Zoom maybe is a tool today that we can do digitally, but if COVID had not happened, it was very hard to tell people that, okay, let's not do a meeting in person, let's try to learn this tool and do it. People would say, no, I am not going to learn this, but COVID kind of forced you. So it's a tool that you can now do. So similarly, people think, okay, I can do it in a different way, but there are new tools that you need to master to work collaboratively. How do I write a code till this point and then someone writes it beyond that? How is it still going to work together? How do I document so whatever I've done, other person can take it forward? These are all skills that Dharamveer needs to go to the next level. So he needs to work on a real life project and with a team. That's when he can say, okay, now I've come to a level where I understand how real life projects are done.
So different people in a different team would do different things you're saying, is it?
Right. That's how every software is made. Like in Google, there are so many parts. Each part is done by a certain different person, and that's how that whole UI comes. There's a lot of complexity behind every device. Someone does the experience, the UX, how will this flow? He's only thinking on that part. Someone is thinking, how will this work securely? He's only thinking on the security part. Someone's making it work with the cloud. He's understanding the complexity of the cloud, and then this product is where all of them can work together and still you have a product. This skill is absolutely missing in India because we are not taught to do things. We're like individual best performers.
Okay. Shilpa?
This question is from Motasim Khan. Wireless technology is an integral part of making IoT mainstream, but what can we do to address low latency in wireless technology?
Yeah, so that is precisely where edge computing comes in, the low latency thing. Because you have this internet problem, right? And no matter what you do, even today, the net is not everywhere in India across, you cannot get seamless, smooth connectivity. So the low latency is solved by edge computing. I'll give you an example of how Zoom will change in future. Likely, it's a very new innovation, so it will take a year or two to come out. Now we are all here with our faces, right? Now what is getting transmitted is the entire face with all our expressions is getting transferred. That means so much bandwidth is going. Now, in the future, when you have edge computing, what will happen is once it captures my face, next time it's not going to transmit my face. My lips are moving, my eyes are moving. This is what is moving. It's only going to make those changes. Okay, his eyes move this much, his lips move this much, and transmit that much data to you. And there on the other end, it will reconstruct that face using AI. And you will still see the same person, but your latency is gone down. You don't need to transmit those. So now what happens is this means you can teach a lot of rural students who don't have high bandwidth connectivity. A teacher, a very good teacher who's available in city can now teach with like an HD quality to a student sitting in remote area, even without having that high power latency, very low power. So these are all advancements that is happening because AI on edge is there. It's reconstructing that phase using AI on the edge. So these are very new technologies that will come. That solves the latency thing. So people are reimagining very, very differently. You know that.
People who are developing these skills, are they finding jobs quickly? What is the sense you get of job opportunities?
In AI especially, it's the demand far, far exceeds the supply. Way far exceeds the supply.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there is joblessness we see in one side. If I extend the question a bit, I would say India kind of missed the bus. The last 6-7 years were very critical for us because the world had so much new technology coming in, the blockchain, IoT, all of this. And India had the right amount of engineering talent, but these did not come into our curriculum. If people were ready during COVID, so much transformation happened, you know, and people are all suddenly post COVID, especially there's a huge demand for these skills. People want to digitally transform, but skills are not available in the market. So on one side we see joblessness, but that's actually lack of skills. So the demand is actually far higher. In fact, we have people who tied up with us to take students whoever pass from our courses, but we are not able to supply. The demand is there, but we are not able to supply. Not able to complete. Yeah. So the demand is far, far higher than the supply.
And all these people who are unemployed, how easy is it to do the pick up these skills, you think?
The skills are easy. The mindset is hard. The mindset required is I don't just need a certificate. I really need the skill.
Okay.
The companies need people who see the world has become too competitive. There was previously also this is how we used to create people. There was nothing different in the previous generation, but they had time to take them into job, train them for 1 or 2 years, and then get them to see their stuff. There was enough margin available for the companies, and there was also, you know, everything was much easier. But now it's become highly competitive. People want to deliver fast. Everything is so fast. You need to release this app tomorrow. That means you cannot bring a person and train him and skill. No time. So I need a person not with a certificate. I need a person with a skill. And this is what they need to realize. Don't just go online and take a certificate and try to come up and ask for a job. Show that I've made it. Show that I have a GitHub profile. Show that I have the skill. Skills are in demand. So we are in this. So the mindset change from, oh, I have to somehow get this certificate versus I have to really get this skill.
That's a good point. Sejal was nodding her head. Now, Sejal, you want to add to that?
I think it's just in line with what we just spoke about earlier, right? It's mainly the shift from just trying to do something for the sake of it, but really doing it right. I think that's the main shift that we really want to make. And like learning the skills itself is not really that difficult. You know, we know that we just have to like, and I think everybody knows this. You need to be disciplined, you need to be persistent, have an open mind, all of that. But it's just about that mindset shift of really putting yourself to do it. You know, just force yourself and do it for a few months, and then you'll really have that skill. And you know, just to add about the demand and supply part, I think we've just spoken to like at least in the morning itself, we've spoken to a few companies who've been like, okay, no, really, we don't want to have these students or these specific students, because then there's a lot of time and mentorship that we need to give from our side because they don't really know the basic system requirements that are really needed, right? So I think that's a big problem. And then there are some companies who are like, we really want NLP skills, AI skills, where we're ready to pay really high packages, right? But still you don't really have that amount of skill that is needed. So I think that's mainly the gap. And then of course the mindset.
I can put a number just to numbers give reality. People are willing to pay up to 25 lakhs to a fresher.
My God. Wish we
There
could
is
get
no
those
shortage of
salaries.
money. There is shortage of skills. The system
Okay,
does not
okay.
have the
So,
right skills.
okay. So if they don't come to IoT.in, I mean, what would you suggest? Get into GitHub and try and do some projects.
Right. There are so many open source projects. They are very evolved projects. You can go onto those evolved projects, study their style of code. In fact, we also do that. Just do industry clone. Try to understand that code, make a small change, contribute back to that code. You understand how professional stuff works. It's all there. All
Okay.
totally available. And
Okay.
all of this is open source. Even the Amazon web stack is open source. Thingsboard is open source. A lot of cloud stack is open source. So if they really want to learn, it's all there.
All there.
Yeah.
Some basic logic skills and programming skills is all that you need, is it?
And perseverance too.
Perseverance. Yeah.
Really required.
You didn't mention. You said AI. There's a huge shortage. But what about IoT?
IoT, I don't think there's so much shortage, but yes, there is demand. There is demand on embedded side. In India, what's happening is IoT, largely there is some demand on the cloud implementation side. Right now, the creation phase is kind of over. It's a little late for IoT. The creation phase is over. That is still happening in AI. That's why there is so much pull, because people are still trying to create. In IoT, it's more of implementation side right now. So now people have shifted to implementation. So they need someone with understanding of AWS, understanding of Azure, because these are things that are getting implemented. So they need someone with those kind of experiences, of the stack. So that also is open source. You can go and learn. But in IoT, this is the condition. And obviously, because some people have done it in the last 4-5 years, so the demand is, the demand supply equation is not as bad as AI, but it's still not good. It's not that you have too many people available. There is still a shortage. And also the salaries are not as much as in AI, because AI does unlock also a lot of value. When AI solution is built, it does unlock a lot of value. So they are also able to monetize it much better.
Okay.
So they're paying much better.
In IoT, which are the industries that are really implementing? It's more of the industrial IoT part, or there are other areas as well?
Right now, the major boom is still happening in Industry 4.0, because the factories see an immediate ROI. And factories have had a huge disruption because of COVID. So there is a lot of implementation happening. Industry 4.0 is first. Then I would say the healthcare IoT somewhat, and the smart home category is also growing.
Yeah. Okay.
Largely it's Industry 4.0, which is taking.
Is it? Okay. Smart homes, no, not so much, is it?
Not so much. It's not like not every home. Some premium homes are getting the services, but largely.
Why these are still expensive technology, is it?
Yeah, because the foreigners are still innovating, and it's not Indians. So
really?
We can send Mars to the Mars also cheap. If we had our innovators, I think we would do it much better. But
yeah,
they're still abroad.
So there's a scope for a lot of local innovation.
Huge, I would say huge, not small. Huge. If all your buildings will all get automated. All your buildings will become smart. You all will measure your energy consumed by your commercial building, your residential building. This is all going to happen. But if you're going to import all of that from Europe, it's going to remain expensive, and the implementation will be slow. But if we were to do the reverse way, understand our problems and make low-cost solutions in India, we would actually be implementing them here and also exporting. But
so you have an entrepreneurial element also as part of IoT.in. So you see people trying to do all this?
Honestly, no.
No?
No. I think it also needs some encouragement. We are still probably it's coming from the society and the family pressure to get something stable.
Oh, really?
Than take risks. I think the upper middle class is somewhere okay with their kids trying something, a small percentage. Still, largely, it's like, okay, do that course and get a stable job.
Okay.
Something more secure than taking risk is largely how we are. That's my sense.
Sorry, Shilpa, anything?
Yeah, this question is from Shivanand Reddy. what is that one example of IoT that we all use in our daily life and don't realize that it's made possible through IoT?
Okay, that's interesting. Let me quickly think. I think it has to be on your smartphone. There are certain things that are happening on your smartphone that is IoT controlled. What is popular in India? It still has to be popular in India, right? I mean, I'm already getting some examples, but they're not common in India.
Any surveillance camera kind of stuff?
But it's not. India is still not where it's IoT controlled. It's not fully IoT controlled. Alexa is one to some extent. It is talking to the server, and it's also both AI and somewhat IoT because it does respond to your so yeah. In India, I'm telling you, on the home side, it's not happening. It's still taking off. Some premium homes have it. They have smart lights. They can control remotely. They have smart ACs, but we have not got. So that means there is a huge scope still. You can look at it from the other side, that there's so much scope. The upper middle class, how much do you spend on your home? You're very happy to spend another lakh if it's all smart home. So there's so much scope still left, and builders don't know how to sell homes. It's not selling, but if you make it all into smart home with local innovation, it solves both sides. That's how
is it that local innovations don't exist, or is it the builders and all are still not very comfortable trying to use these local innovations?
It's dual side problem, but I think it's always the innovators and the system that supports those innovations. Like you need to create a platform, and a lot of platforms are created where you bring out and showcase these innovations, and then like incentivize the industry to adopt it. So you kind of the Atmanirbhar program or whatever. I mean, where you showcase local innovations. If people see and they see that, oh, this is adding value. This is a local problem that we had. And I'll give you simple, okay, one thing that is IoT, and a lot of these buildings now have it, that the water is getting shut off automatically. Previously, it used to be like someone would go and switch it off. That is now kind of automatically sensor driven, that the water reaches this level, it automatically switches it off. So some of these are locally innovated and getting implemented, but there are many more such problems that you can do locally and fix. Those innovations are missing. There's a lot of scope in there.
Okay. Shilpa, anything else that we haven't covered?
Yeah, Nikhil, I just had this question. So do you say that the barriers to entry are lower, but on the other end of the spectrum, we are really grappling with a suboptimal IoT workforce, right? There is so much of demand-supply mismatch. So what is, you mentioned about how India missed the bus in terms of technology upcycles, right? So what kind of an opportunity loss are we really experiencing, considering that we don't have enough IoT specialists?
Or I would say emerging technology. I would see whole of emerging technology as a stack. If you see today, we are talking of high unemployment, and we are saying, okay, what could have we done? It is COVID, but that's because we did not go into the new technologies. It's not a COVID problem. It's we not going into the new technologies. Bitcoin went from where to where. I mean, the blockchain. There are so many apps that got created on blockchain. Now, if India had skilled all its people in the last 3-4 years, if it was there in curriculum, if AI was there in curriculum, if IoT was there in curriculum, then when this digital transformation that is happening in this Bitcoin rally, a lot of people are now building solutions and they're looking for skills abroad, but they're not finding them. So this could have been a golden opportunity for us. There suddenly, because of COVID, and they're all looking to build new technologies, Zoom could have been built in India in that case, or just an example. A lot of things we would have seen forward. Okay, this is where we have so much skills. Let's build them in India. So this is what I'm saying when we say the whole emerging technology stack. COVID did force, I think Microsoft, Satya said this, that his digital transformation, they were all trying to drive digital transformation. It was not moving. And then COVID happened, and then it automatically that's why these stocks went so high. The tech stocks went so high. That is precisely because suddenly so much demand came in for digital transformation. So if we had prepared for it, we would be seeing a different scenario. That India is like, there's a lot of companies coming to India, setting up all this, taking all our latest skills, and we are all growing. But now the scenario is different. So that's why I say we miss the bus. We'll catch up. We are always good at that. Catching up last minute.
We will do a good job. And a question here from Vijay Deep. What skills are common if you want to work in IoT and AI domains?
Okay, what skills are common if I want to do both? Then C++ is common, and that's a very good question because it helps me bring out this point. Many people, when they learn AI, they think of only Python, but most of the implementations actually happen in C++.
Okay.
Even Facebook and all implement their AI in C++. The research happens, PyTorch and all is in Python, but the internal implementations happen in C++ because it's much more efficient. And I'll tell you the implication of not doing this. Python takes 75x the energy of C.
Oh, I see.
By changing the programming language.
Really?
Now you imagine, we all talk of climate change. Have you thought if AI gets implemented so much in the next 10 years, and most of the people are learning Python, and if it's all implemented in Python, how much are we going to burn the earth?
Oh, really?
The energy cost of this solution. So we are trying to push green AI, that you also need to be mindful of new technologies in terms of the energy. So taking that question, basically so the future is going to be where C++ is your common skill, because C++ works on IoT and it also works on AI, both, but it's not known. That's a common skill. Python also works, but I think Python is good for research and it's also good for getting a job. But later on, if you want to go advanced, you can go C++.
Yeah, I think somebody wrote a story for Times Techies on this. There are a lot of implementations finally, even though you may do the initial work on the research in Python, but implementations. That's true for most enterprises, is it? They implement in C++.
Even like Facebook and all, because what happens is, by the time, when you are uploading a photo, Facebook has to see who is this person, and every moment so many people are doing it. So what is the load that comes on the server? Now multiply that by 75x if it's Python. So they have to obviously be mindful of that. So that's why it goes down.
Any other common skills?
The language mostly is the common skill, because then the technology stack is very different.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would suggest C, but Python also works to enter the field. But C few people know this, that C has a lot of demand. C++, C, and I will see that is together, has a lot of demand that is not satisfied. Python is excess supply.
Really? Already?
No, not in AI, but just the Python skill. A lot of people know Python. That is in excess. Python plus AI is little lacking, but C++ with AI is extremely lacking. So you get a lot for knowing that.
Oh, that's an interesting point. Shilpa, anything else?
Yeah. Sejal, do you want to take us through, like Nikhil emphasized the need for a builder's mindset, right? And you need to acquire that from a product standpoint. So as in when you train a lot of professionals and students who come to the platform, do you see some sort of a change in terms of how they are acquiring that mindset?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I think this is how we take it, right? Like we obviously give them the opportunity, we give them the platform. Like this is something you have where you can really transform your mindset and skills. Now some of them do it. Like there's a huge filtration that happens. You say you have 2,000 people coming in, then there are a few who will do the orientation mindset. And actually this is a very interesting point, that we supposedly think that mindset is easy, right? Just discipline, perseverance, we know all of that. But there are a maximum amount of people actually drop there, where you have the mindset part and the basic foundational skilling. That's where maximum amount of people drop. So even before anybody wants to learn IoT and AI, that's a major hurdle that they need to really solve. Now, coming to your question of what is the transformation that you really see in people, I think we've really diluted the program, like we said, right? Like basically what we're trying to do is, if you make it very hard and if you make it a 6-month or a 1-year program, it becomes very difficult for at least this generation, where it's become very instant and very quick, right? Everything happens quickly. It's all a sprint. Generally, but generally in corporates, what's happening, it's always a marathon. You do your part really well, and it's always a marathon. So I think that's what we're trying to do, shorter formats, but even in that we can't really make a huge, like a 50-kilometer marathon or any of that. So we're just reducing it. So it's like a 3-day program, or maybe a 1-month program or a 2-month program, depending on what you want to take, and then you will see transformations at different levels. So I think that's what we see. There is definitely transformation. The ones who really persist and are open-minded, these are like, normally we say like just 2 qualities. Even if you don't have like really high-tech skills with you, but if you have persistent and open-minded, I think we're good to go. We can surely transform you.
Maybe Sejal, you should just tell them like some of those, and at the end of the session that they talk, they tell the corporate judges what they learned. Maybe, you know, speak their words, whatever they have told.
Right. I think there are few students just this Sunday, actually, like there are few students who say that the primary difference we saw is we thought that it's an error, you know, from the documentation point of view, or maybe they are not explaining it to us, you know, they're not really explaining it to us. We don't have mentor sessions, all of that. But then finally on day 3, they say that it was actually because I didn't read the documentation well. So maybe I just went back, I read it, I understood it, and I think I was able to solve the problem. So I would like, that's just one of the examples. There are different things which people really say, you know, like some of them will be like when we really think about industry projects, it's always just connecting few things, or at least industry IoT projects, just connecting few LEDs and you have something on the cloud, you see something on the UI and you're done. But industry projects is much more. There's also a huge planning part that comes even before getting to start with your coding. Right. So I think these are primary shifts that we see. And of course, you have corporates and them coming in, sharing their insights.
I have another question from Chirantan. He had asked a question previously as well. Asking about Golang. It has gained good amount of popularity over the last few years. How applicable is Go in IoT and AI?
So Go and Rust, 2 languages are coming and solving most of the inefficiencies. You know, they are better languages than all the others. They're both power efficient and can do a lot, but it's an unsettled debate between Golang and Rust. Go is coming from Google and Rust is coming from Mozilla. So both are doing cutting edge stuff.
For both, this is being used both for AI and IoT, is it?
They're trying to push it everywhere, but the challenge is always how many developers know this, so they are not able to drive it. But yeah, so
you as alternatives to Python, is it?
Yeah, it can. I mean, it's a programming language, so it can do everything eventually. But yeah, it is right now coming in that space. Google is pushing it. It is coming in some IoT. It's also coming in some AI. There is some AI that is being done, but it's very nascent. So unless you want to do something, it does not have a huge demand, but it does have its own space of demand. Go especially has. Rust also has its own space, but so be very careful when you take that. Look at what kind of jobs are available, who are the implementers, and try to learn it from that perspective, because it's a niche market. So you're a little early to that game. So, you know, there's a risk of when you're too early, it's sometimes a little risky also. But yeah, it does have future. So
Google Assistant and all doesn't use Go, is it? What does it use?
I mean, Go is used, and there, because, you know, Google does so many projects and they don't mind one failing. But if you do it and you fail, you have a risk, right? So Google did this Google Glass, it failed. Google is also coming, parallelly they're coming with a language called Flutter for web and app. So they have so many things going for them. They might just chuck one and go to another, you know. So it doesn't mean
we can't afford to do that.
Yeah, we can't afford to. You're risking your career.
Shilpa?
We have this question from Vijay Krish. Currently, I'm working in IoT Node-RED. Will it be good if I continue in the same domain?
Node-RED is good. Has its own implementations. It's not growing at the pace that it should be, but it's useful. Again, it's a niche. It's a niche within that IoT space. So so whenever you're in a niche, what you do is you go to the job websites and search Node-RED and see what kind of companies are hiring and what kind of skills are they looking for. So you don't come from making into the project because, you know, I'm in a niche. I also need to know the industry. And one way to know the industry is just look for the jobs and what are they asking for. So in niche, I would suggest, yeah, it is okay, but not huge growing market now.
Okay, we have time. Yeah, past our time. Questions are done. One last question: Shunya OS, what? I mean, what stage is it? So it's you are developing it yourself, and your team is developing it, and it's to, accelerate the development of any IoT application. Is it?
So actually, it's a low-code platform where anyone can build an AI and IoT. In fact, someday I will like Shilpa and Sujit also to build it. It should be so easy that you can drag drop. My vision is to reach a point where anyone who wants to solve a problem is able to just drag drop and create a professional product, because a lot of people are creative, but they cannot go back to learn coding. You want to create something, you should be able to create it, is where we want to eventually reach, but that's way far. That's no code. but we are one step back, low code. No code is where you don't have to code at all. That's where
Right.
you guys will come in and make some products of your own, drag and drop. But now we are at low code. In low code, you can assemble. What we have made is we have made it like Lego blocks. All these, like if you want to detect face, all you need to write is detect face. You don't have to write the whole AI. So they're made into small functions. They're all interconnectable. So like a Lego block, you can put together full system, and it's very professional and robust. So right now it's being given to these students. They can build, and some people are getting limited beta access. So products are being built on it. We are also selling it to exporting it to some countries.
Yeah.
Not fully launched. Yeah, it's not fully launched. It's not available. That will take a while.
Okay. You're already earning some revenue from it.
Yeah, we already.
Okay. Yeah, there are others who are trying to do similar things.
There are obviously Google is having Google Android of things. Then there are a few more companies doing it. They're all trying. Yeah, but I think we are kind of little simpler than them. Is our advantage. But yeah, there are others who will come in for sure. They'll come. It is the trend.
Okay. Wonderful. Thanks so much, Nikhil, Sejal. Great having you on the platform. I mean, these are the topics that our audiences love. Like you said, AI, enormous demand, plenty of scope there for youngsters to learn and become employable. And like you said, 25 lakh salaries and stuff. My God. Thanks a lot, Nikhil. Thanks a lot, Sejal.
Sure.
Thank you, Nikhil. Thank you, Sejal.
Thanks for having. Really appreciate
Thanks a lot.
putting this together.